Between 1989 and 1991 in Dublin, something really remarkable happened. A group of people got together ostensibly to raise funds for two charities. Poetry Ireland, which is the association that looks after poets and supports poetry in Ireland, and Clashganna Mills Trust, a trust set up to assist artists who had suffered disability through accident. They both got together to raise funds, and they decided that they would do this by asking a poet to write out in his own hand or her own hand a number of his poems and having these accompanied by work of an artist. They were so enamoured of the idea that it spawned and it took legs, and it ended up being the creation of a wonderful vellum manuscript 3 years later containing the work of 120 Irish artists and 120 poets. And this is the Great Book of Ireland. It's a vellum manuscript. It is extraordinarily beautifully decorated, not just by the artistry of the artists themselves, but also by calligraphy done by a man called Dennis Brown, who was commissioned to give the book a similar theme and a kind of a pattern throughout its pages. So the Great Book of Ireland was proposed and promoted in that time. It was never actually sold in the early 90s until very recently. Today at UCC we are going to celebrate the acquisition of the book by University College Cork. There's going to be an event in the Aula Maxima which is hosted by Michael Murphy, the President, and which will be officiated by President Michael D. Higgins, Éigse Éireann. All the contributors to the book have been invited to the event, and they will mark the occasion through a number of readings and a number of performances, including a reading by Seamus Heaney and a reading by Nuala Ní Dhomhnaill, the Irish language poet. And we will also have the world premiere of a composition that's also included in the book by Jim Lockhart of the Horselips, the composer. And we will have a number of speeches, we will have displays of pages from the Great Book, and of course the Great Book will be there in itself. The acquisition of the Great Book for the university marks a coming together of a number of different initiatives. It is the acquisition of a major manuscript which the library will curate, look after and act as custodian for over the next millennium, I hope. It will also facilitate readings and performances and a competition, an annual competition around poetry and art. So it will stimulate a lot of activity which will be of interest to students, to researchers, to visitors. And it will also act as an example of philanthropy, because the way in which this book was acquired is quite interesting. The book was acquired for $1 million, all of which was raised by the university, by university staff, and all of which was raised from private sources. That $1 million came into the university but went straight out again to the two charities that I mentioned earlier, to the Clashganna Mills Trust and to Poetry Ireland. And so it was also a celebration of an act of philanthropy, which is quite well, which is a wonderful example of how a public institution such as a university can actually enable this kind of social or cultural philanthropy.